The little girl never cried when she fell. Not once. Not when she scraped her knee on the marble stairs. Not when she touched a hot pan by accident. Not even when the doctor said the words that broke her father's heart into 1,000 pieces. Your daughter is deaf, Mr. Bennett. She will never hear your voice. But 3 years later, a stranger walked into their mansion, looked into the child's ear, and pulled out something that made the richest man in Chicago drop to his knees and scream. This is the story of a little girl named Lily, a nanny named Hannah, and a secret that lived inside a child's body for 3 long years. Before we go further, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is right now in your city. Drop in the comments. I read every single one. And if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button right now, because you do not want to miss what happens next. Like this video if your heart is already racing. Okay, let's begin. Daniel Bennett built his empire from nothing. Steel real estate, shipping. By the time he was 40, his name was on buildings across Chicago's skyline. But none of that mattered the day his wife died giving birth to their only daughter, Lily. He raised her alone in a glass house on the edge of Lake Michigan, a house so big that Lily's laughter, when she was a baby, used to echo through empty hallways. But the laughter stopped early, because by the time Lily turned 1, Daniel noticed something was wrong. She didn't turn her head when he called her name. She didn't jump when thunder cracked outside her window. She didn't react to the loud clatter of drop plates in the kitchen. He took her to every doctor money could buy. New York specialists, London specialists, a team flown in from Scotland who studied ears for 30 years. All of them said the same thing, just with different words dressed up in medical language. Profound sensory neural hearing loss. Permanent. Irreversible. Lily would never hear again. Daniel didn't sleep for a week after that diagnosis. He sat by her crib every night, whispering, "I love you," baby girl, into her tiny ear, knowing she would never hear it, but needing to say it anyway. Grief does strange things to a man. It makes him talk to silence and hopes silence talks back. He hired the best specialist in sign language. He built a special room in the mansion just for her therapy. He learned to sign himself, clumsy at first, his big hands fumbling to the alphabet like a boy learning to write. But Lily was smart, sharp eyes. She read lips before she could walk. She watched people's faces the way other kids watch cartoons, hungry for connection, desperate to understand a world that had gone silent on her. By the time she was 4, Lily could sign fluently. She was polite, curious, and endlessly patient with the world's noise that never reached her. But something else started happening too. Something Daniel dismissed for a long time as just a strange habit. Lily kept tilting her head to the left, all the time, when she ate, when she played with her dolls, when she watched television with the subtitles on. Her head tilted like she was listening for something, straining toward a sound that wasn't supposed to exist for her anymore. Doctors called it postural compensation, a common thing in deaf children. They said, nothing to worry about. Daniel believed them, because what else could he do? He was a man who could buy skyscrapers, but couldn't buy his daughter's hearing back. So he let the head tilt become just another part of Lily, like her dimples or her love for strawberry ice cream. Now here's where things start to get strange. So stay with me, because this next part is going to break your heart before it heals it. Every nanny Daniel hired left within months. Some said the house felt heavy, like something was watching. Others complained that at night, they'd hear scratching sounds coming from Lily's room. Faint but constant, like fingernails dragging along a wall. One nanny quit after only 11 days, refusing to explain why, her hands shaking as she packed her bags at midnight. Daniel thought they were being dramatic. Old houses creak. Old pipes groan. He was too busy running a company worth billions to chase ghost stories. But deep down in the part of him that still whispered goodnight to a daughter who couldn't hear him, something nagged. A feeling. A father's gut instinct that something was wrong, something bigger than deafness. Then Hannah arrived. Hannah wasn't like the other nannies. She didn't come from an agency with a fancy name and a stiff resume. She came recommended by an old family friend, a retired pediatric nurse who said, "Trust me, Daniel, this woman sees things other people miss." Hannah was in her early 30s, quiet, with kind brown eyes and calloused hands from years of real nursing work. not just paperwork. She had worked in children's hospitals in Texas before moving to Chicago for a fresh start after her own daughter passed away from illness 2 years earlier. She understood loss. She understood children. And most importantly, she understood how to truly watch a child, not just supervise one. On her very first day, Hannah sat on the floor with Lily, cross-legged, and instead of talking, she just watched her. She noticed the head tilted immediately. She noticed how Lily sometimes winks for no visible reason. Tiny flinches that lasted less than a second. Easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. She noticed how Lily sometimes pressed her palm against her left ear at night before falling asleep, like she was trying to hold something in or push something out. Hannah asked Daniel a simple question that no other nanny had ever asked. Has anyone actually looked inside her ear canal recently? Not just tested her hearing. Actually looked. Daniel blinked. In 3 years of specialist hearing tests, brain scans, and sign language therapy, nobody had done a simple physical ear exam recently. The early diagnosis had been so definitive that later doctors just accepted it as fact and moved on to teaching Lily to live without sound. Nobody looked back. Nobody double-checked. That question would change everything. If you're still here, drop a comment telling me one word that describes how you're feeling right now. I want to see them flooding in. And please, share this video with someone who loves a good mystery, because what Hannah found next will leave you speechless. That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Lily's tilted head, the flinches, the way the little girl's fingers curled protectively around her ear when she thought no one was watching. Hannah had seen a lot in her nursing career. Children with rare conditions. Children with things doctors miss because they were looking for something complicated when the answer was simple and right in front of them. Around midnight, she heard it, a soft scratching sound, faint, rhythmic, coming from down the hallway. Her heart pounded. She grabbed a flashlight and walked toward Lily's room, telling herself it was probably just the old pipes, the wind, anything logical. She opened the door quietly. Lily was asleep, but her small body was restless, twisting under the blankets. Her hand pressed hard against her left ear, her face scrunched in discomfort even in sleep. Hannah crept closer, and that's when she heard it again. Not from the walls, not from the pipes, from Lily's ear. A tiny, wet, scratching sound. Hannah's blood turned cold. She had worked in hospitals long enough to know what that sound meant, and her mind refused to accept it at first because it seemed impossible, insane, the kind of thing you read about in horror stories. Not something that happens to a billionaire's daughter in a glass mansion on Lake Michigan. She gently woke Lily, careful not to scare her, using slow, familiar signs. Lily woke up rubbing her eyes, confused, and Hannah signed, "Can I look at your ear? Just for a second?" Lily nodded sleepily and tilted her head, the same tilt she always did. Except now Hannah understood. It wasn't a habit. It wasn't compensation. It was Lily unconsciously protecting herself, favoring the ear that hurt. Hannah clicked on her flashlight and looked inside. At first, she saw nothing unusual, just the pink curve of the ear canal. But then, deep inside, something moved. Something with legs. Hannah nearly dropped the flashlight. Her hands shook, but years of nursing instinct kicked in, and she forced herself to stay calm. Because panicking in front of a child, even a child who couldn't hear her panic, would only make things worse. She signed to Lily, "Stay very still, sweetheart. Very, very still," and she rushed to wake Daniel. Daniel came running down the hallway in his pajamas, hair messy, eyes wide with particular fear only a parent understands. The fear that something is wrong with your child, and you don't yet know what. When Hannah told him what she saw, he almost laughed, thinking it was a joke, a nightmare, anything but real. But Hannah's face told him this was not a joke. They rushed Lily to the private emergency clinic Daniel kept on retainer for situations exactly like this, though nothing had ever prepared him for a situation like this. The ear, nose, and throat specialist, a calm older man named Dr. Whitfield, examined Lily using a special scope, a tiny camera that let everyone in the room see what was happening inside her ear canal on a screen. What they saw made Daniel's stomach drop through the floor. A centipede, alive, coiled deep inside his daughter's ear canal, pressed against her eardrum, its many legs gripping the delicate skin, its body pulsing gently with movement. Dr. Whitfield's voice stayed steady, trained for moments like this, but even he couldn't hide the shock in his eyes. "This is an extremely rare case," he said slowly. "The insect appears to have entered the ear canal a long time ago, possibly years, and its presence, combined with the swelling and pressure it caused against the eardrum, would explain the hearing loss." Daniel's legs gave out. He didn't fall, but he had to grab the wall to steady himself, his mind spinning backward through 3 years of silence, 3 years of sign language lessons, 3 years of whispering, "I love you," into an ear he thought could never hear him, when the truth might have been something entirely different all along. "Are you saying," Daniel whispered, his voice cracking, "that she might not actually be deaf?" Dr. Whitfield chose his words carefully. "I'm saying we need to remove this creature immediately, safely, and then run new hearing tests. I cannot promise anything yet, but it is very possible, Mr. Bennett, that the years of pressure and infection from this insect physically blocked the transmission of sound to her inner ear. If the auditory nerve itself was never damaged, there's a real chance her hearing could return." The room went silent, except for Lily, who sat calmly on the exam table, watching the adults' faces with the same patient curiosity she'd had her whole life, unaware that the next 30 minutes would decide whether she would ever hear her own name spoken aloud. The removal procedure was delicate. Dr. Whitfield used a specialized suction and forceps tool, working with precision of a surgeon defusing something dangerous. Because, in a way, he was one wrong movement, and the creature could burrow deeper, damaging the eardrum permanently, ending any chance of Lily's hearing returning forever. Hannah held Lily's hand through the entire procedure, signing gentle words of comfort, her own heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Daniel stood in the corner, unable to watch and unable to look away, tears streaming silently down his face, 3 years of grief and guilt and helpless love pouring out of him at once. After 11 agonizing minutes, Dr. Whitfield lifted the forceps. The centipede, nearly 2 inches long, dark and glistening, was finally out. The room let out a collective breath. Lily blinked, touched her ear gently, and for the first time in years, there was no wince, no flinch, no pressure. Just a strange new quiet that felt different from the silence she'd always known. But the real miracle hadn't happened yet. Dr. Whitfield insisted on waiting 48 hours for the swelling to go down before running new hearing tests, because testing too early could give false results in either direction. Those 2 days were the longest of Daniel's life. He barely worked. He barely ate. He sat by Lily's bedside the way he had when she was a baby, whispering into her bandaged ear, not knowing his words were finally landing somewhere or still falling into darkness. Hannah stayed too, sleeping in a chair by the door, unwilling to leave the family she'd known for less than a week, but already loved like her own. She thought about her own daughter, gone 2 years now, and how much she wished someone would look closer sooner before it was too late for her. She couldn't save her own child, but maybe, just maybe, she could save this one. If you've made it this far, I need you to do something for me. Comment right now and tell me if you think Lily got her hearing back. I want to know your guess before I tell you the truth. And if this story has your chest tight right now, smash that like button. It truly helps this channel grow and lets me keep telling stories like this one. 2 days later, the Bennett family returned to the clinic. The testing room was small and quiet, with soundproof walls and a single chair where Lily sat, headphones placed carefully over her ears, a small button in her hand that she was taught to press whenever she heard any sound at all. Daniel and Hannah watched through the observation window, holding hands without even realizing it, gripping each other like two strangers bracing for either the best or worst news of their lives. Dr. Whitfield began the test. A soft tone played to the headphones, barely above a whisper sound. Seconds passed. Nothing. Daniel's heart sank. He squeezed Hannah's hand tighter. Then Lily's small finger twitched and pressed the button. Dr. Whitfield's eyebrows rose slightly, professional composure cracking just a little. He increased the frequency, testing different pitches, different volumes, watching Lily's face carefully. Button, button, button. She was hearing, actually hearing, sound after sound after sound, her tiny finger pressing down again and again, her face slowly shifting from confusion to something Daniel had never seen on his daughter before, wonder. By the end of the 20-minute test, Dr. Whitfield walked out of the room with tears in his own eyes, something Daniel would later say he had never seen from a doctor in his entire life. "Mr. Bennett," he said, voice shaking slightly, "your daughter's hearing has returned. Not fully, not yet. There's still some residual damage that will need monitoring. Hearing aids, possibly. Therapy, definitely. But she can hear sound. Real sound. For the first time in 3 years." Daniel didn't remember walking into that room. He didn't remember falling to his knees in front of his daughter's chair. All he remembered was Lily looking at him. This time not reading his lips, not watching his hand sign words, but actually turning her head toward the sound of his voice as he said, broken and crying, "Lily, can you hear me? Baby, can you hear my voice?" And Lily, for years old, having lived her entire understanding of the world through silence and sight and touch, tilted her head, the same tilt that used to hide her pain, except now it was just a little girl listening, truly listening, to her father's voice for the very first time she could remember. She didn't say anything back. She was too young. Her speech development delayed from years without sound input, and Dr. Whitfield warned it would take time, patience, therapy, more hard work ahead. But she reached her small hand out and touched her father's face, feeling the vibration of his voice against his cheek, connecting sound and touch and love all at once. And something in that moment broke Daniel completely open. 3 years of grief pouring out in front of everyone in that clinic hallway. Hannah stood back, watching the reunion, wiping her own tears away, feeling something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Purpose. Her own loss had taught her to look closer, to never assume, to trust her instincts even when the whole world told her everything was fine. That instinct had just given a father his daughter's voice back, in every sense of the word. But here's the part of this story that nobody expected, the twist that changed everything for the Bennett family in ways money never could. After Lily's hearing began improving over the following months, with therapy and small hearing aids to help boost the residual damage, Daniel launched an investigation into how a centipede had entered his infant daughter's ear canal in the first place and stayed there undetected for years. What he discovered horrified him. The mansion's original construction, done years before Lily was even born, had a serious flaw. A gap in the nursery wall near her crib, hidden behind decorative molding, that connected to an old ventilation shaft never properly sealed by the contractors. Insects had been getting into that wall for years, and at some point, when Lily was just an infant, barely months old, unable to move away or alert anyone, one had found its way into her ear while she slept. Every specialist who examined her over 3 years had focused entirely on hearing tests, brain scans, nerve responses, because the early diagnosis was so confident that nobody thought to physically look inside her ear canal again. It was a devastating lesson in how even the best doctors, the most expensive care, can miss the simplest, most obvious answer when everyone assumes the hardest explanation must be the true one. Daniel didn't just fix the wall. He tore down that entire wing of the mansion and rebuilt it from scratch. And more than that, he used his company's resources to fund a foundation, one that provided free, thorough physical examinations for children misdiagnosed with hearing loss and other conditions across underserved communities in Chicago, New Jersey, and eventually clinics in Los Angeles and Florida. He named it the Lily Foundation, dedicated to making sure no parent ever had to learn what he learned, that sometimes the answer isn't a complicated medical mystery. It's something small, something hiding in plain sight, something nobody bothered to look closely enough to find. Hannah never left. What started as a nanny position became something much deeper over the following year. She and Daniel bonded first as two people who both survived unimaginable loss, then slowly, carefully, into something neither of them expected to find again. Not a fairy tale rush of romance, but something steadier, built on trust and shared grief and the quiet miracle they had witnessed together. Lily adored her, not as a replacement for the mother she never got to know, but as someone who had truly seen her, who would look closer when everyone else looked away. 2 years later, Lily started kindergarten in a regular classroom in Chicago, wearing small hearing aids tucked behind her ears, her speech still developing but improving every single day. She still knew sign language, and she used it proudly, teaching her new classmates simple words and signs during recess, turning what once felt like isolation into something she shared freely with joy. But now, When her father called her name from across the room, she turned. She smiled. She ran toward the sound of his voice like it was the most beautiful thing in the world. Because it was. Every night, Daniel still sits by her bed for a few minutes before she falls asleep. He doesn't need to sign anymore. He just talks, softly, about nothing in particular, the weather, her day at school, how much he loves her. And every night, Lily listens, really listens, and sometimes whispers back, "Love you too, Daddy." Words that took years of therapy and heartbreak and one impossible discovery to make possible. This story is a reminder that sometimes the truth isn't buried in complicated places. Sometimes it's hiding in the smallest details we overlook because we're too afraid, too busy, or too convinced we already know the answer. Look closer at the people you love. Ask the questions nobody else thinks to ask. You never know what miracle you might find. If this story touched your heart today, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this one. Drop a comment below telling me what part hit you the hardest. I read every single one, and I love hearing from you. Give this video a like if you believe in second chances, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that hope is always worth holding on to. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I will see you in the next story.